Have you ever experienced the mental torture of thoughts that won't stop spinning? That endless loop of what-if scenarios that keep you awake at 3 a.m.? The constant analyzing, replaying conversations from last week, rehearsing situations that may never happen, or that voice in your head that dissects every decision until you're paralyzed with doubt. Your mind has become a prison of its own making, trapping you in cycles of worry, analysis, and mental chaos that steal your peace and drain your energy. There's a profound reason why your thoughts have such relentless power over you. And today, I'm going to reveal the ancient wisdom from Buddhist teachings that explains this phenomenon. These secrets, thousands of years old, yet strikingly relevant to our modern struggles, offer not just understanding, but a complete path to mental liberation. In this video, I'll share 7 unmistakable signs that reveal why you're trapped in overthinking and the profound Buddhist solutions to finally free yourself from this mental prison. Pay special attention to sign number 7. It's the most transformative and could completely revolutionize the way you experience your own mind. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my next videos on spiritual growth and inner peace. Now let's begin. The first sign is attachment to thoughts disguised as problem solving. When your mind won't stop spinning, you might believe you're being productive, thorough, or responsible. You tell yourself this endless thinking is helping you prepare, analyze, or find solutions. But Buddhist teaching reveals a crucial distinction. True problem solving brings clarity and resolution, while overthinking creates only more confusion and anxiety. If your thinking patterns cause mental exhaustion, decision paralysis, or the same problem cycling endlessly without resolution, what you're experiencing isn't productive analysis, but mental attachment. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of all suffering, and this applies especially to our relationship with our own thoughts. You keep thinking the same thoughts, not because they're helpful, but because you've become attached to the illusion that thinking more will somehow solve everything. This attachment manifests as compulsive mental activity that refuses to subside. The ancient Zen masters described overthinking as trying to bite your own teeth. The very effort creates the problem you're trying to solve. If your mental activity feels more like mental torture than mental clarity, you're dealing with attachment, not genuine thinking. The second sign is unresolved emotional, energy-seeking completion. When your mind won't stop analyzing a situation, it's usually because there's an emotional charge you haven't fully acknowledged. Perhaps someone hurt you, and you keep replaying the scenario, trying to make sense of it. Maybe you made a mistake, and guilt keeps your mind spinning in circles. Or possibly you're facing uncertainty and anxiety, manifests as endless what-if thinking. This emotional energy acts like fuel for the fire of overthinking, continuously feeding the mental loops until the underlying emotion is processed. Buddhism teaches that nothing arises without cause. Each persistent thought pattern points toward an emotion that needs your attention. If your mind keeps returning to the same topics despite your efforts to move on, ask yourself, what feeling am I avoiding? What emotion remains unprocessed? What am I really afraid of beneath all this thinking? The persistent thoughts aren't the problem. They're actually pointing toward the solution, an emotional truth waiting to be acknowledged and integrated. The third sign concerns identification with the thinking mind. Buddhism's most revolutionary insight is that you are not your thoughts. Yet when you're trapped in overthinking, you've fallen into complete identification with mental activity. Instead of seeing thoughts as passing mental events like clouds moving across the sky, you've begun treating them as reality itself, as who you are. Every thought feels significant, true, and demanding of attention. You believe that because you're thinking something, it must be important. This identification creates a feedback loop. The more you identify with thoughts, the more frequently they arise, and the more real and urgent they seem. Buddhist meditation practices focus on creating distance between yourself and your thoughts, observing them without becoming them. When you think, "I'm worried about tomorrow," try noticing there's a worried thought about tomorrow appearing in awareness. This subtle shift creates space between you and the thought, weakening its grip on your consciousness. Zen masters describe this as learning to watch the river of thoughts without falling in and being carried away by the current. You are the awareness that observes thinking, not the thoughts themselves. The fourth sign involves attachment to mental control. Buddhist philosophy teaches that the desire to control your thoughts actually strengthens their power over you. When you're overthinking, examine whether you're trying to think your way to certainty, to figure everything out, to anticipate and prepare for every possible scenario. This attachment to mental control creates endless loops of analysis as your mind continuously seeks the impossible, complete certainty about uncertain situations. The Zen concept of don't know mind teaches us that true wisdom often lies in accepting uncertainty rather than trying to think our way out of it. You can recognize this pattern when your thoughts consistently lead to more questions rather than answers, when solving one worry immediately creates 3 new ones, when you feel like you must understand everything before you can feel peace. Buddhist practice suggests that liberation comes not from having all the answers, but from becoming comfortable with not knowing, from finding peace in the midst of uncertainty rather than trying to eliminate it through thinking. I sincerely hope you're finding value in these insights. If so, please support by subscribing to our channel and sharing this video with someone who might benefit. Your support allows us to continue creating content that fosters spiritual growth and inner peace. The fifth sign is the illusion that thinking equals being present. Asterisk. One of the mind's most clever tricks is convincing you that constant mental activity means you're being attentive, aware, or present. Yet Buddhist teaching reveals the opposite. True presence happens when thinking naturally settles, when you're fully here rather than lost in mental projections. When you're overthinking, you're actually absent from the present moment, living in imaginary futures or replayed pasts. Every what-if thought takes you away from what is. Every mental rehearsal removes you from current reality. The Buddha taught that peace exists only in the present moment, but overthinking is the mind's way of avoiding the present by staying busy with mental activity. It's like being so focused on the map that you miss the actual territory you're walking through. Buddhist mindfulness practices train you to recognize when you've left the present moment and gently return to what's actually happening now. When you're truly present, overthinking becomes impossible because there's no mental space left for it. The sixth sign concerns the illusion of permanence in mental states. Asterisk. Buddhism teaches that everything is impermanent, constantly changing, including your thoughts and mental states. Yet when you're trapped in overthinking, you fall into the illusion that this mental turbulence is permanent, that you'll always feel this mentally chaotic, that your mind will never find peace. You believe the intensity of your thinking will never fade, that the problems occupying your mind will always feel this overwhelming, that you'll forever be trapped in these mental patterns. This illusion of permanence actually strengthens overthinking by making it feel more solid and real than it actually is. Buddhist practice involves recognizing impermanence in all mental phenomena. No thought, no matter how persistent, remains unchanged forever. The anxiety about tomorrow, the regret about yesterday, the confusion about decisions, all are subject to the universal law of change. When you truly understand that these mental states are temporary visitors in the space of your awareness, their grip loosens naturally. As the Zen saying goes, "This too shall pass." not as consolation, but as recognition of the fundamental nature of all experience. The seventh and most profound sign is spiritual awakening, disguised as mental suffering. From a Buddhist perspective, periods of intense overthinking often precede significant spiritual growth. What feels like mental torture may actually be consciousness trying to break free from old patterns, old ways of understanding yourself and reality. Unlike other signs, this one asks you to consider a radical perspective shift. What if your overthinking isn't a problem to solve, but a doorway to awakening? What if this mental intensity is actually your consciousness preparing for a deeper level of understanding? Buddhist teachings suggest that our greatest suffering often contains our greatest opportunity for liberation. The person experiencing the most mental chaos might be the one closest to discovering the peace that exists beyond thinking. Rather than trying to stop the overthinking, consider what awakening it might be pointing toward. Instead of asking, "How can I make this mental noise stop?" ask, "What is my consciousness trying to show me through this experience?" This transforms overthinking from mental enemy to spiritual teacher, from something to escape to something to learn from. Perhaps your mind won't settle not because something is wrong, but because something profound is trying to emerge. In Buddhism, this represents the transition from seeing mental activity as the problem to recognizing awareness itself as the solution. The way out. Now let's discuss the Buddhist path to liberation. First, practice mindful observation. When overthinking begins, don't fight it or judge yourself for it. Simply observe the mental activity with gentle awareness, as if watching clouds pass through the sky. Notice the thoughts without becoming entangled in their content. According to Zen tradition, what you resist persists, but what you observe with detachment naturally transforms. The goal isn't to stop thoughts, but to change your relationship with them. Second, investigate with compassion. Ask yourself, what am I really afraid of beneath all this thinking? What emotion is driving this mental activity? Approach this inquiry with kindness rather than judgment. Buddhism teaches that wisdom arises not from harsh self-criticism, but from gentle curiosity. When you discover the underlying fear or emotion, don't rush to eliminate it. Simply understand it with compassion, knowing that awareness itself begins the healing. Third, practice letting go through acceptance. The Buddha taught that letting go isn't something you do, but something that happens naturally when you stop grasping. Rather than forcing your mind to be quiet, accept the mental activity while loosening your grip on needing it to be different. The Zen metaphor of open hands is powerful here. You can acknowledge thoughts without holding them tightly. Redirect with intention. When overthinking begins, use it as a bell of mindfulness, a reminder to return to the present moment. Rather than fighting the mental activity, use its appearance as an opportunity to deepen presence. Each time you catch yourself overthinking, take a conscious breath, feel your body, notice your surroundings, and gently return to now. Over time, what once represented mental imprisonment becomes an unexpected doorway to presence. Fifth, cultivate the witness consciousness. There's a part of you that has never been disturbed by any thought, any mental state, any experience. It's the pure awareness that watches all mental activity, but remains untouched by it. This witness consciousness is your true nature. Practice resting in this awareness, recognizing that you are not the thinker, but the consciousness in which thinking appears and disappears. Finally, embrace the sky-like nature of mind. There's a beautiful Buddhist metaphor that perfectly captures liberation from overthinking. Your mind is like the vast sky, and thoughts are like clouds passing through it. Initially, Dark storm clouds of overthinking might fill the entire sky, making you forget the sky exists. But if you remain still and aware, you remember that no matter how intense the storm, the sky itself is never disturbed. The clouds don't damage the sky, they don't stain it, they don't make it less vast. They simply pass through and disappear, leaving the sky exactly as it always was, open, spacious, and peaceful. Similarly, by resting in the sky-like nature of your awareness, you discover that no amount of mental activity can disturb your essential peace. The thoughts come and go, but you remain vast, open, and naturally at peace. As Buddha taught, you are the sky. Everything else is just weather. When you're trapped in overthinking, Buddhist wisdom teaches us to remember our sky-like nature, rather than identifying with the temporary storm clouds of mental activity. Your mind is naturally spacious and peaceful. Through these ancient practices, you don't create peace, you simply remove the obstacles that hide the peace that's already there. Thank you for joining on this journey toward mental freedom. Subscribe for more spiritual insights that transform modern struggles with ancient wisdom. Until next time, may you find the peace that exists beyond thinking, knowing that you are not your thoughts, but the vast awareness in which they arise and pass away. The peace you seek is not something you need to find. It's what you are when you stop looking for it in your thoughts.